All righty. Good afternoon, Chattanooga, for the technically final day, but because I'm such a benevolent leader. Actually, no, that's not true. This is all Chris Dorch. The films are available for one more day, so everybody can watch films on Wednesday. But welcome to the last official day of Chattanooga Film Festival. I was watching. I did a couple watch parties yesterday, and one of the films that I did a watch party on was hit me in such a weird way that I hit up Dorch and I was like, "Hey, can I do a Q&A for Make Popular Movies?" And he was like, "Yeah, absolutely." And so it's my pleasure to be sitting down with Brian Connolly, the writer, director, also one of the editors. Also, if you've seen the film, he plays the waiter in what I'm assuming is a draft house. Is that correct, Brian?
That's the old Ritz that's no longer there. The Ritz downtown. All right.
For anybody that's familiar with Fantastic Fest, I saw the Highball is in there. You probably recognize Devin Stallwald, Zach Carlson, a bunch of Fantastic Fest family members there. Brian, tell me how this how this movie came about, because I will say first of all, the writing in this film, I don't know if you were following along our live stream chat that I had with Evan while we were watching it. The writing in this film is just hilarious. So bravo on that.
Well, I would like to thank the actors for that, because the movie was 100% improvised.
Oh, okay. Awesome.
I mean, I worked with them, but yeah, nothing, no words were written on paper except for the audition dialogue.
Okay.
That was the only thing that was written down that I wrote.
When you were working with them, how did you handle the improv? Was it like, here's the scene idea? Did you give them like where you wanted the scene to go? Because I know that can be handled in different ways.
Sure. I guess let's backtrack and start where this started. I jumped ahead there with that. I just wanted to clarify to give the actors the credit that they did the dialogue. Actually, the scene of this was at Chattanooga Film Festival 2019.
Oh, wonderful.
It was the first time I was there. First time I was ever in Tennessee. Loved it. And the producer, Moet Jaswell, and the actor in my movie, one of the actors in my movie, Nathaniel Hendricks, were there with their movie Butt Fantasia.
Oh, yeah.
And I was there just doing like a presentation with Zach Carlson on the history of punks and movies based on a book that him and I wrote like 12 years ago. And I was sort of like burnt out on watching movies by the end of the week and decided just to explore Chattanooga. And Nathaniel is from Chattanooga and his family still lives there. So he was like, let's walk across town from the theater and go to this bar where you can still smoke inside and they have pickle infused alcohol. And I'm like, let's do it.
I love Chattanooga. I hope it never loses this like bits of charm that it has.
And we did this long walk and we went over the beautiful river, like over the land bridge, like through the town. And we just got to talking about because I was really frustrated because I've been trying to make movies, like write movies for a really long time. And I had a few minor successes with like a few pilots and a short, but nothing that really, all the stuff I really wanted to do never got made. And so I was like, I just need to make a movie. I can't wait for anyone else anymore. I need to just do it. And Nathaniel's like, let's do that. What are we going to do? And I'm like, well, I really want to do like Robin Hood because I feel you'd be a really good Robin Hood. You have this nice Robin Hood sort of face that would look well with the hat. He's got like this, the way his face structure is with the hat. And it reminded me of the fox in the Robin Hood cartoon. Yeah. And so we talked about like,
I think, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I think we can agree that is the best Robin Hood, right?
Yeah, definitely, hands down.
The animated Robin Hood. The animated Robin Hood. I don't know. Men in Tights is really good too.
Oh yeah, if you count Men in Tights, yes, Men in Tights and the Disney one. And so we talked about this Robin Hood thing, and I was like, yeah, I want to do something with Robin Hood. But then I had this idea for what if we made it like a science fiction Robin Hood, and it was like in the post-apocalypse, and they forgot how to make movies, and they're actually making Robin Hood from a faint memory of it in the future. And he's like, okay, let's make that movie. So I got back to Austin, where I live, and I got to writing this science fiction thing. And I then had this other idea for like, I've had an idea for a while of doing sort of a difficult people in Hollywood movie based on real things that happened in my life. And I wanted to make a movie about Lou Baghetti. And Lou Baghetti is actually a character that is in another movie from the erotic softcore movies from the early 90s called Hollywood Dreams and Hollywood Passions, that are these weird, like behind the scenes of a movie, like late night Cinemax thing. And the character Lou Baghetti in that movie always stuck with me. And I was like, someone should make a Lou Baghetti movie again, but not make it porn.
Yeah, I by the way, that's like you're speaking exactly to my era of puberty, and so I'm very
here they are. Here, these movies have a character named Lou Baghetti in it. Yeah,
I love this. Is that DVD or is that VHS?
This is a VHS and this is a DVD. And one of them was so popular they made a sequel, or who knows what the heck. But so I changed the spelling of his name so I can, kind of like the Emmanuel, Black Emmanuel, like right. You drop a consonant or vowel or whatever, and you make a new character. And then the character of Lou Baghetti that in my movie is totally different. He's still difficult in the early 90s movies, but we made it our own thing. But it's like the name Lou Baghetti, and he's the director. So I wrote this. I kind of wrote two scripts then, and I melded them together and thought, well, this is an anthology movie, I guess. And we were off and running and trying to make the movie. And I asked Moet if he would produce it. And he was like, immediately, like, of course, let's make this movie, which was amazing. I just on a whim decided to ask him. And he helped me try to get all the actors together. And basically we went to every improv group, every stand-up show in Austin, because there's a great comedy scene here in Austin. And we just sort of like discussed and picked who we thought were the funniest people in town. And then to get finally to the answer of how I worked with the actors with the improv, we did a few days of rehearsals where we just kind of were basically like every scene I wrote, I knew sort of the beginning, middle, and end and what the joke was. Like in every scene, I wanted to make sure that every scene was its own self-contained gag.
Right.
Because I really like movies like that. I'm a big Jerry Lewis fan. I'm a big fan of Takeshi Kitano's comedies. I'm a big fan of like just Zucker Brothers, stuff where every scene is a joke, and you could take all the other stuff out and it would still work.
I actually Shane Brady, the director of Breathing Happy, he was looking for a movie last night, and your movie was the film that I recommended to him, and I was like, the best part about it is it's kind of one of those ones where like every 5 minutes is its own little vignette, and like it's almost a collection of short films that have a very serious through line. So it is a complete film, but like it's broken up into pieces, and it's just like it's a good like kind of palate cleanser for some of the heavier stuff that's at CFF this year.
And so we had these rehearsals where we didn't rehearse every scene. We only rehearsed maybe a third of the scenes because the other ones I wanted to save for when we were filming just to see what would happen. So we just worked with the actor. I worked with the actors. And we just kind of figured out how the scenes would go, sort of the characters. And then when we filmed a month later, we just kind of every day would be like, okay, here's what we need to do. Like there is so much footage that we shot for this movie. And like the movie is a nice swift 74 minutes. The original cut was over 2 hours long. There's a whole story that didn't even make that I cut out. There's a whole 40 minutes of a different story that's gone. And that was mostly the science fiction Robin Hood stuff. It was originally going to be 2 different movies. And then I decided to meld them together and make that the movie that Lou Baghetti was directing, because that just made sense to me. I
absolutely, like when you actually, I never thought that you were going to get to see what they were filming, but when you do, it's such a brilliant payoff. And like, it takes you back to this era of like, before like DIY movies got like really polished and you're like, you know, people like grew up doing special effects. It felt there was like a quick time where like there were a lot of films that kind of came out that were like, oh, that I love what they're trying there. They're like swinging for it, and I love that your movie within a movie was kind of an homage to that.
Thank you.
Yeah. How did you find John, who plays the Lou Baghetti? Like he is brilliant, and like I mean, like I said in the chat, like I had so much PTSD watching this movie, but in like such a good way. Like I worked commercials for a long time, and I worked with a lot of directors who he reminded me of, and not in a good way. How did you find him? Was he one of the people that you just found on kind of the?
Well, John Goodman was one of the few people I actually knew before trying to make this movie. I've known him for a while because I used to manage Vulcan Video, which was a video store in Austin. I managed it for years. And he would come in as a customer. I would run into him at the Alamo. Because he's a brilliant artist. And I want to say he worked on some character sketches for a failed animated pilot that I tried to do with Zach. And so I've just always known him. And then when I was making this movie, putting together, I found out that he was doing improv, which I had no idea that was a skill that he had.
Oh, okay.
And I was like, wait, he's doing what? And I feel like I'm totally wrong in this maybe, but I felt like he had only just been doing it for maybe a year or two before this movie. I want to say it was like a new thing he just decided to do. I could be totally wrong on this. But I didn't know him as a comedian or an actor.
Okay.
And so I saw the improv that he was doing, and it was amazing. And I was like, this, and I just was instantly like, well, clearly he's got to be Lou Baghetti. Like, it has to be him. There's no one else on the planet that it could be. And I just find him to be just an interesting person. And I don't think I've seen an actor like him in any movie ever. And, I pitched it to him, and he was like, sure, let's do it. I'm like, do you want to be the lead? Okay. And then we were just off and running, and like, he's so good, and he's so good in this movie. And like, especially like all his long speech, like the Oscar speech, like it kind of hit an emotional tone that I wasn't expecting, because I was kind of aiming for laughs. And then the more scenes I did with him, the more his character was like really fascinating and sad to me. And I think he really kind of like it sneaks up on you. Like the movie, I think, starts with him being like funny and difficult, but then you kind of get, the more you hang out with him, the more you kind of feel for him in a weird way.
Yeah, it's funny because an unlikable protagonist that he kind of starts out being, he's still for some reason very disarming, and I still was like weirdly rooting for him, even when he like. There were so many great bits. The audition, a couple bits in the audition, like him stealing the second water and chugging that, and then eating an entire pizza. Again during the little watch party we had, I was like, I hope they got that in one take, because I can't even imagine trying to ask John to eat a second.
Yeah, we did have a bag of pizza just in case. Like, it was sort of like that scene. That made me really nervous. It really reminded me of like, I forget which James Bond movie it is. I think it's Spectre, where they blew up like some building, and it was like the biggest explosion ever. And they're like, we can do this once, and that's it. And so that's sort of what I told the actors. And that was honestly the least rehearsed scene, I think, in the whole movie, because I wanted to see him eat a whole pizza. And I know I wanted Katie, who plays the producer, I wanted her to not catch on that he ate the whole pizza till the end and then get really upset, and then they fought. And then I wanted the assistant to kind of, I didn't know what I wanted Alex to do, who plays the assistant. I think I was just like, just work with it, because she's a brilliant improviser.
Now, whose choice was it? Because this is also something I mentioned. Whose choice was it? Was it for Alex to ask for one of the crusts?
That was all her. So what's amazing about that scene is I really was like, all right, he's going to bring the pizza in. You're going to go pizza. You're just going to talk about the audition. And then eventually you got to argue about it. And I was like, how fast can you eat a whole pizza? And he's like, I have no idea, maybe 10 minutes. I'm like, great. And I told the DP, Christopher Schneider, who is amazing. I think the movie looks like $1 million. I was like, just follow the scene. Like I wanted it to move around. but like, I don't want it just to be a static shot. I would still want there to be some movement. And he was great at just capturing he just was so good at capturing the right thing. And so we just were like,
is that one take?
That's one take.
I was going to say
8-minute take, no cuts. Because that was sort of like, I really had never seen a person eat a whole pizza in a movie before. And it's like that. I've done that. We've all done that. Why is like cinema should be, showing the truths of humankind.
I've 100% eaten a whole pizza before.
He did it. And the whole time I was cracking up. I was like, I can't ruin this take. This is so funny. And the way it all went, I had no idea he was going to make the delivery guy wait. That was I was like, what's going to happen with this? And making him just sit there and wait and watch like a weird, like, that was just so like, yeah, it's, and then when it ended, we were like, that's it. We don't need to do any more takes. John, you're fine. You ate the pizza. We're done.
I 100% like that whole sequence has like some standout moments. Nathaniel in that scene. Is brilliant. His Jack Nicholson was like a combination Jack Nicholson, Gilbert Godfrey, which I like really loved for some reason. I don't know why. I was like, oh, this is brilliant in a way that I was not expecting. I think that's when that scene was when I fell in love with the movie. I was in all the way, but like that sequence was where I was like, oh, this is something really special. And like, I definitely think that there's a lot of people in the industry that will 100% relate to this. And I think it'll kind of transcend the industry as a fun kind of like, this is real question. Like the Cheesecake Factory, the movie, that feels real. Was that something that you actually got pitched at one point?
Oh, no, but okay. Wedding Babies is a real thing. That was something that Katie, who is the producer, she brought that up as like, that's the ultimate movie that Hollywood should make, right? Because like, there's everybody, time you have a meeting, people are talking about you should make something with babies or you should make some weddings because that reaches everybody. Right. I've always pondered this idea of Wedding Babies, and definitely like the way the scene, how that meeting gets out of hand with Zach and Alex, like that is totally real. Like I've been in pitch meetings where it just gets to the weirdest places. Like we tried, Zach and I wrote a pilot that was based on a true story about a Nazi hunter, and it was going to take place in the 70s. It was just before the Jordan Peele Netflix show. And we had this meeting, and it was really serious. And we were talking about the Holocaust, and the guy we were talking to was Jewish, and we talked about kind of being Jewish in America. And it was a really heavy conversation. Like the pitch just turned into like this heavy dialogue about it. And it was going really well. I was like, oh, maybe they're going to make this. And then at the end of the meeting, or towards the end, he was like, but I think it's a little too serious for us, but we do have the rights for this dog named Jumpy the dog. And can you make a Home Alone with the dog? And the dog is running around, and we're like, what? No, like, this is not what this is different than what we, and it just kind of left that meeting frazzled, like, this is so ridiculous, this town.
I'm often on both sides of the pitching desk. I've obviously, like, I get pitched to all the time, and I also then take, ideas that I fall in love with and pitch them upstream, if you will. I've definitely been in it from the side of the doing the pitches. I don't think I've ever, and you know what, correct me if I'm wrong, somebody on Twitter, I don't think I've ever been listening to somebody pitch a movie and then taken an idea like that is so clearly out of left field and not what you're talking about, and been like, but what about this? This is really why, like, we joke around all the time. It's like, oh, okay, cool. That's really why you wanted to bring me in, and you humored me by listening to my pitch.
Well, that's the sad thing. Like part of my frustration of before I made this movie was I was going out for meetings for like 3 years, like flying to Hollywood, having meetings. I was very lucky to be in that position because most people never get there. And I have a great manager, and it all just was doing well, except for the meetings were all kind of silly because they were all like that, where you'd go in and pitch the thing you wanted to do. And then they would usually just kind of bring out their garbage and be like, well, we have this garbage and that's what we want to make instead. And you're like, I don't want to do that.
It always feels like I mean, I won't speak for your experience, but it's always feel like when it gets to that point, it's like you've pitched this to everybody, and I'm just like the next person, and everyone else has said no, and you just want me to say yes, and you just kind of have this like sunk cost fallacy of like, well, we already own this, so I guess let's keep trying to make it. But it's like everybody knows it's a bad idea.
Yeah, it's a silly place, Hollywood. I love it. It's great, and I've had great meetings with people that aren't silly, but it is just a kind of a ridiculous.
I mean, like it's make believe. I mean, we're playing make believe.
Yeah, yeah.
It kind of makes sense, but also like, especially when you go into those meetings, you're like, everybody's wearing a button-up shirt. It's probably like the best you dress all year. I know it's like the only time that I put buttons on my shirt. It's like, I guess I could put a shirt on with buttons. This one doesn't have any stains on it. Let's put this one on. Oh goodness. I don't even know where we go from here. Okay, so the scene that's in I'm assuming that's a note screening that they're watching when they're watching the ise in the theater. Is that based off of a real experience as well? Because that feels. There's a few experiences, and I won't give. I won't say names for any of these people, but. Well, one was based on actually a story I read about. I think it was Martin Scorsese was showing a movie to somebody like in the 70s. It might have even been Taxi Driver. And the producer was like constantly ordering lunch and this coffee in the back of the theater and was just like, watching this movie. But there was a screening in town of a filmmaker. It was like his first, it was the first screening of this feature, and he was showing it to a bunch of film people. And one of them is sort of like this film, I'm the guy who knows, like, I will tell you about I will make or break your movie in Austin. And they had the screening, and the first thing this guy said to him after the screening, to the filmmaker, he turned to him and said, "Okay, here's what you did wrong," which is not what any filmmaker wants to hear after the first screening of a test screening of a movie. So I always thought that was so funny. Like that, it's like, oh, that poor filmmaking. That's not how you tell anyone anything. And then I also just sort of like, I love the Alamo, but I do get a little crazy sometimes with the food ordering. And I remember trying to see The Turbine Horse, the Bellatar movie. Oh yeah,
which is a quiet movie.
Yeah,
it's a slow movie, and at some pivotal emotional part of the movie, I'm hearing behind me somebody ordering nachos. And then them getting confused with the nacho order, and then I'm just sort of like, and I'm just kind of driven crazy by it. And so I thought it would be funny to kind of vent some of my frustrations with the occasional loud food order.
I love all of the food that the Alamo offers, but I can definitely see, like, if you're watching a movie like Gravity, and somebody like, I love the theatrical experience, but I feel like as I'm getting older, I'm definitely turning into the guy that goes to see movies at like noon. So I'm like, nobody in here is like trying to ruin this movie for me. Like, we're all trying to escape, the regular going movie public that is just, there for some entertainment. I'm like, I'm there to like, get invested. Like when I saw Everything Everywhere All at Once, there was like 3 people in the theater, and it was wonderful because I wanted to see that movie with people, but also like I didn't want to see it with a lot of people.
I love those early morning screenings. When I saw Battleship on opening weekend, I was in an audience at like 10 in the morning, and I was like the only one there with my friend Jason, and it felt like a private screening of Battleship. Maybe every screening of Battleship felt like that weekend, honestly. Great movie, by the way.
Well, awesome. Anything else you kind of want to leave the audience with? I just, like I said, I can't thank you enough for making this movie. Like everybody that's watched any of my Q&As knows that like we're at Rustic, we're a firm believer of like make movies with friends, and this fucking had that written all over it, and I loved it, and I love when people kind of I don't love when people get to your situation where they're like, I'm just sick and tired of it. But I love the response that you had to it, which was like, you know what, fuck it, I'm going to go do this. I'm going to go make my own movie. I think, that's always my recommendation to people. That's how our last film, Something That Dirt, came about. We were like, we got to just go fucking make something.
Yeah, I think that's, and it's like so easy to make a movie now, easier, more so than ever. It's just like, it's literally like in your pocket. You can make a movie.
The term is accessible. It's more accessible than ever. It's not.
Yeah, I guess it's still hard to get people together and do it.
It's still very hard to make a movie.
I did misspeak there. But it's so accessible. So if you really want to make a movie, find the people that will help you. And like this movie cost nothing. Like Make Popular Movies was a no budget movie. I just paid for it myself. It was very cheap. But I think it's also important though to pay everyone in your movie.
Yep.
And I made sure to do that. I told everyone, like, I don't have enough money to pay you a lot, but I'm going to pay you something because you're all craftsmen, craftswomen, and you are worth it. And I wanted to make sure that everybody knew that they were their time was worth it.
As a writer, I'm sure that you're used to people asking you to give your creativity for free.
Only, yeah. It's the only job I can ever think of where that's the thing, where it's like, will you write this movie for free? And then maybe we'll do something with
and then possibly if we like it. I mean, yeah,
it's a horrible job that I don't think anyone should ever do. But I make sure to pay everyone.
I respect that, because that's also kind of a belief that we have. It's like you can't always pay people what they're worth, but you have to pay them something. Make sure they're fed well. I mean, John ate a whole pizza.
Yeah, that was a free dinner. Everyone got fed. No, it was and it was worth it. And I think it made people know that it was worth it, and that now hopefully they'll come back for the next one. The next movie I can pay them a little more, and kind of the goal is to keep getting a little. Do
you want to build off of this idea, or is this kind of like a world you want to live in terms of like?
I'm done dissecting Hollywood. Though the next thing that I'm writing, that I'm almost done, that I want to do is more of like a horror, but it's definitely the same tone. It's definitely like playing with the genre and having fun with it and making fun of some of the silly parts of it. And that's sort of the next thing. So it'll definitely be kind of in the world of genre and movies, where like how Make Popular Movies was to action movies and big budget stuff. This one I'm working on is more horror. But it's not about making a movie like this. It's more like it's more kind of, I don't know. It's definitely going to be I don't know. I keep thinking in my mind, it's going to be a combination of like a Mel Brooks movie and and like in a Pitchapong Warsathaku film.
Like if Mel Brooks did a horror film?
Like if Mel Brooks did like a slow horror film that's very meditative. Like
honestly, I'm really into that idea. I've watched everything he's done, but I've definitely watched that.
So it's like a lot of jokes, but it's going to be really boring and slow. And because I love really slow movies, and that was sort of a thing I tried to do, and a lot of people didn't like it in Make Popular Movies. Is I wanted to do these long takes. I wanted to not do comedy with editing, because I'm really into like Tarkovsky and slow, pretentious stuff, but I also really love Zucker Brothers and Mel Brooks. And I was like, is there a way to, I've never seen like a slow comedy. Like, I don't know. I was just trying to work it out, and I'm still trying to work it out. I think that's I'm going to keep trying to figure out.
I will say, I feel like, I guess you could describe the pacing as slow. However, it never felt slow. It never felt like, there always felt like there was just enough going on to keep me interested. The casting was brilliant on it, because like everybody was very interesting, and like I was very curious about what they were doing. So so hats off to you on that.
Thank you. And I think when I mean slow, I don't mean, I guess I meant like meditative. Meditative. Like I like these moments. I like the idea of sitting in a moment and being there. And I think a lot of movies cut away from the moment. And that's why I wanted to see a person eat a whole pizza. That's why most of the scenes are these sort of like just letting the actors play out in the moment, and just kind of being stuck in that kind of hell of that moment.
Yeah. Well, really, really well done, Brian. Where
Thank
can
you.
everybody find you on the socials?
I'm on Instagram at Brian Connolly 1, WON. And that's kind of it. I kind of hide away
I
from
mean,
social media.
honestly, we can all just hide away from all social media. But
And
I want people to be able to talk about this film. I hope
yeah.
everybody gets a chance to catch it. And thank you so much for sitting down with me.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you, Chattanooga Film Festival, for programming it. It really means a lot.